Mics are hot.
Y'all been at it all morning, man.
I mean, he was about to catch that so lease action. It was stop howling at me. Talking crazy to me. He was about to catch that so lease.
Y'all been fighting
So
all
that's what we're
morning.
gonna call it from now on. The so lease.
I had to look and realize where I was at.
Yeah.
You said you had a key out moment. Fighting
Yeah.
all morning.
He about to catch that so
Like
lease
the
action.
whole show. It's just like
Right every day to prove my love.
Beads and sweat on his head like he was
It was warm in here.
a personal something. Like,
Oh wow.
come
Wow.
here.
So Keith,
good morning.
we turned the air on
It wasn't.
in advance of.
Okay.
It was on for him. He was sweating. when I walked
No.
in the door.
What did I
Good
say to
morning.
you, Carby? Carby, what did I say to you?
Well, how was you sweating when I walked in the door?
Because we just had. Well, you turned it on.
Good
I
morning.
turned it on.
So Carby must have turned. Oh, you're like, can I do my show here?
Good morning. Welcome.
No, I said to Carby, I says, from now on, man, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the air on when Michelle gets here, because I'm a little warm, so I know she's gonna be overheating.
Good morning.
I didn't say overheating.
What? I was about to throw this, but I realized my phone wasn't in it because it wasn't gonna hurt.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Community Voice.
Oh,
I'm one of the hosts of the program. let me thank the other two hosts for joining us this morning. Good morning, Devo. Good morning, Michelle. Hey, Carmen.
Good morning, Keith. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Let me do this, and then we'll. I guess
You're not gonna ask how I'm doing.
Oh, I know.
I want to say my little saying, man.
How you doing, bro?
I would be an ingrate if I didn't. Tell you that I'm doing great this morning.
I'm doing fine. Where?
on cloud nine.
One more time.
See, you always gotta mess it up.
On cloud nine.
You always gotta bring that.
Well, good morning. Let me do this, and then we'll get back into the chaos, which is Community Voice, which comes on after and say something real. Wednesday, today is Wednesday's word. Wednesday's word is accountability. I was having a conversation last night with Tyrone Dumas, and we were just, and Tyrone has been through it. Tyrone said I've had to sit on that
meetings with him.
Right. I've had to sit on that stage and have people come at you.
About MPS?
About MPS. He talked about walking into SDC, not SDC, OIC. And because, he ended up at the end of it. And so we were talking. And so at the end of it, I said, you know what? Do you have any suggestions for Wednesday's word? And he said accountability. I said, okay. So then I went in, and so me and Rhonda was saying, word for Wednesday. And I said, Tyrone suggested accountability. And she said, yeah, okay. So we're going to be talking accountability. That's going to be our word. We can tie it into everything that's going on, I think. And so let me just give you Webster's definition. People, what?
Do we know who Webster is?
Yeah, he was a dude. First of all, he is not Daniel Webster. All right, Daniel Webster was a senator, congressman from Kentucky. Congressman. And so very different. No, this is the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says that the state of being held accountable is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions. I love the word. The key word here is responsibility. Accountability is responsibility, but our willingness to accept it. There are three types of accountability. We'll talk about a little bit today: your personal accountability, social accountability, and obviously what we're talking about today, governmental accountability. So let's do this real quick. Personal accountability is the belief that you're fully responsible for your own actions and consequences. It's a choice. It's a mindset and, an expression of integrity. Social accountability is a form of accountability that emerges by citizens and civil society organizations aimed at holding the state to account, as well as the efforts by government and other actors to support and respond to these actions. And then finally, governmental responsibility is under constitutional government. Those who govern are regularly accountable to at least a portion of the governed. In the constitutional democracies, the accountability of government officials to the citizenry makes possible the citizens' responsibility for the acts of government. There you go. I need to, and of course, my sinuses kick in. There are
You
4
need some
pillars.
tissue, Tito.
At some point, I do.
I mean, Michael, I'll go get you some tissue.
She's out of my life. The 4 pillars of accountability. 1, responsibility, a duty that binds to the course of action. 2, answerability. Answerability. I can't even pronounce the word. Being called to account. Trustworthiness, a trait of being worthy of trust and confidence. Liability, being legally bound to a debt or obligation. So again, Wednesday's word is accountability. So here's our questions for discussion. I mean, you all want to call back and talk about school board meeting, that's cool. 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. So let me ask the question. So in the case of MPS, Milwaukee Public Schools, what does accountability look like based on where we are today? What does accountability look like where we are today? I did see Michelle and I was talking yesterday, and I was saying that you have to do a little bit more than come and scream at meetings. And it looks like, I don't know who the group is. They're a group of folks who are going to get together for recalls. And I think that that's one of the ways that you hold governmental officials accountable.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was talking with someone yesterday, and they reminded me that we do have a rule, and I have to figure out how it's applied, but that you cannot recall someone 1 year after, within 1 year of their election.
Right.
Many of these people were just reelected. And so if that in fact applies, they would not be able to recall those people within that first year.
Right. Until next year.
Yeah.
And that would be Daryl Jackson.
Um,
because he just got on the board, right?
yeah, but everybody still got
the reelection.
Got reelection. So, and because I was trying to remember, does it start with each election?
Yeah, I think it does, but then they
tenure?
have staggered terms too, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they
So
staggered?
I'm just saying, and we're going to find out specifically today, but there is a real reality that some of these people may not even be able to be recalled if they were just recently elected within the first year.
What kind of reality?
I'm sorry, what did I say?
What kind of reality?
What did I say?
Real reality.
Did I say that?
You know that's a reality, the more because that's real. Real reality.
Isn't that
Oh yeah, the real
redundant?
reality.
Real
Oh yeah.
reality.
Oh my God.
That's redundant,
awful.
isn't it? I'm practicing my vocabulary. Repetitive.
Yeah.
Redundant means what?
It could be redundant too, right?
Why are you looking at me like that?
What does brick mean?
What? Brick.
Yeah, what does brick mean? She want definitions.
No, I don't.
Define brick.
I don't even want to know.
No, yeah, you.
House.
Oh no, not that brick.
Not that brick.
He wants to sing this morning. He keeps
Oh
coming
man,
up
I
with
just
songs for everything.
I
man.
got a song. Wrote a song about it. You want to hear it? So anyway, here we go. This is the day after the night before, and so the question now is, what is the way forward for MPS? I think that one, I'm just still troubled, and I'm with you on this, Solis. I'm really troubled that if your job is to make sure that paperwork gets to where paperwork needs to get to on time and accurately done, and you don't do that, that is malfeasance. Now, the question Rhonda and I were discussing this morning when it comes to the CFO is, does she work at the pleasure of
She's hired by the superintendent.
Okay, so that means that she could be protected by civil service. Don't know her status. And when I tell people that this little differential,
And let's be clear, not an accountant.
That really
Not an
jumped out.
accountant.
An attorney, right?
An attorney, and then a math teacher.
And you got a
is
math
what-
teacher who
Yeah.
probably real good with numbers
Yeah.
if you do the paperwork. So the question then becomes, if she's civil service, then there's a whole process of
Oh, somebody just said Marva Herndon was reelected in April 23. So they can definitely get her.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can get Marva.
She ain't gonna be there long. No, I shouldn't have said that.
People are doing this, but and I don't know because I haven't looked at her campaign finance reports, but don't think the MTEA is not going to throw support behind her and money behind her.
Oh, for sure.
So
you're gonna try to keep your people in place,
right.
For
so,
sure.
Yeah, well, you got people out
Even
there.
if you recall them, they're gonna be coming up with a slate of people to run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And she could run again.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
So.
Of course.
But the idea, so there's some personnel issues there. You were saying something was real interesting. You said that they asked, why did you let him resign and you didn't fire him?
Right.
A couple of things, because even at an at-will employee, because he could sue, he has a contract, he still gets due process, right? So all of a sudden you're going to fire him. So was it just gross malfeasance, which would then say you should be immediately terminated? But if it's been a systemic issue and you have been giving him positive job performances,
you gave him a raise,
and you gave him a raise, which is the most positive job performance piece that you can get, it's going to be pretty difficult. And that's why they're in there 5 hours. If we were saying you need to improve, Michelle, if you don't improve on this, here are the consequences, I don't think that happened.
But look, and like I said, did the reporters ask the mayor why they let Claire Woodall, who has been removed from her duties in terms of the election commission, and but she got a whole little package. You get to work from the location of your choosing. You can't talk about the mayor or his team,
right?
Because
she could litigate it.
Yeah,
because they would have to show that they did progressive or it was just so bad,
right?
Because there's certain things you can fire a person on the spot for.
Exactly. So I'm like, y'all didn't ask the mayor, why didn't they just fire
and I
Claire?
thank you for bringing this up, just so people understand who are outside of government and never worked in government. You don't want to get fired. You want to quit.
Exactly.
Why don't you want to get fired? Because you can lose your pension.
That's right.
So there's a big thing in terms of him. And then if they say we fired you, that's why that agreement has that he's not going to say anything disparaging.
Yeah, because that can come for you.
Right. And they're not going to say anything disparaging in terms of him trying to get another job.
Right.
So it's a little bit more complicated when people go, well, you should just go in and fire him. Technically, you could. Now, what they could have done, let's say they could have just waited and said, we're not going to renew your contract. But they would have had to pay him through 25 because that contract, I understand, goes through 25. So he got about 60%.
I was going to say he got
6%.
Because what, the $160,000,
right?
I think that would have probably took care of his contract, the remainder of his contract. Oh, no, it's 2025.
Yeah, and Ron and I were going back and forth for them. What is their contract cycle?
That's what I was saying.
Is it September to because teachers they have the option, they can get paid year round
10 months or 12 months.
Or 10 months, 12 months. And so it's a little bit more when people say, so why do they go in closed session? Because anytime you deal with personnel issues, it cannot be publicly discussed, right? You have privacy protections. So when people come in and you got all this going on and which kind of gets us back to this whole accountability piece. And then it's going to be interesting to see with the forensic audit, something Tyrone said last night. He said that normally when you change leadership or change a position, especially financial positions, they will do an audit, right? I think it's just a good governing rule that you do audits annually. I mean, and you bear the expense, because the long-term cost of you not catching things that are happening is what we're looking at right now. That now you're looking at fiscal fiscal malfeasance.
I still want to know where they came up with this number as far as the referendum is concerned.
We don't know.
When you don't even haven't closed the books, if you will, on your
previous year.
Yeah. I don't. I'm on an organization right now. We're kind of dealing with making sure that we're caught up with our stuff in terms of auditing and the financial integrity of what it is, in fact, that we're doing.
But did you see that they said that there were other school districts here in Wisconsin who are in a similar situation as MPS,
right?
In terms of late filings and that kind of thing. Now probably because they're smaller districts,
Don't
they
have the
won't
same
have
impact.
same impact.
Well, because
But-
they did say that some of these school districts can't do their books because MPS hasn't done
Well, they
theirs.
can't get their money. They don't know what that final formula is going to be in
Um,
terms of the
yeah.
educational aid.
And you know, other people have pointed out, Glendale was in a very similar
Same
situation to
situation.
MPS,
Mhm.
and Baker Tilly had to come in and work with Glendale School District. I think I had saw somewhere that over 100 school referendums have been put in play as people have been trying to figure out how to deal with the major cuts to education, all the responsibilities that they have.
How much do you think COVID has impacted on this in terms of giving people artificial, because it really was artificial, right? Short term, and that people are trying to reconcile what they use for COVID, how the COVID dollars were used, and how that might impact then.
I think it's like an
another line
NBA
item.
player. If you knew how to manage money, COVID was just another pot, and you responsibly managed that. You didn't, start to fund programs that you had to figure out next year how you were going to continue to keep them open. If you were irresponsible with money, COVID just exacerbated that and helped you be even more irresponsible. The people that don't do this well, it shows up. It shows up all the time. But I think that the districts that were responsible, they understood what the short-term gains were, and they effectively figured out how to use that. Other people just
No, but I'm saying, but then because artificially you created positions. I'm using this word artificial.
right.
You created positions that were funded through COVID dollars. Those dollars are not there anymore.
But again, if I'm responsible, I know that this is a finite amount of money.
Right.
So that means that I'm creating positions under the guise that this is a 2-year position. We're trying to turn this around or have this impact or get this bang for buck. And whoever takes that position, you need to understand this is a 2-year position, because I can't commit to figure out how we're going to fund this going forward. And somebody just said, right, this is what happened in Glendale School District. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah. What is this? Aisha Carr.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out, but I just saw it. But so yeah, like I said, people that's financially responsible, you're financially responsible whether you get a windfall of money or you don't.
Okay. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Parris.
Good morning, Solis. How are you, dear?
Keith with 4 East. And my favorite flavor of Kool-Aid is red.
You like red Kool-Aid?
Yeah, you remember you used to have them questions on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I don't know how many
before,
people. That's a good question though. So, Lise, what's your favorite
but
Kool-Aid?
accountability to me, I can spell it really well. I'm a great speller. But anyway, yes, Mr. Mosley, whatever his last name is.
Hey, take us off the
Hold on.
speaker, dear. You're breaking up, and we want to hear you.
Oh.
Or maybe we don't.
That's worse.
My education is that the next time they need an accountant, I can tell it really, really well. Because the way they asked it, the very first speaker, they
So, Lise,
go back and listen to it, because I ain't got to lie. It was so disrespectful. I mean, no matter what race, because that's how I was raised, but uneducated. And I have 5 children. I don't know. You never heard the story before. You go have 4 boys and 1 girl.
All right,
I
dear.
don't have to look. And I remember your voice that you were saying.
Jesus, going in, boy.
So, Lise,
I didn't come inside.
we're going to have to.
I was waiting to speak with
So, Lise.
I kept on saying,
Okay.
I'm not trying to get you to come inside. All I was catching up on to it.
You want me to hang up?
I can't. I'm sorry.
And then I met Letitia Myers because Michelle has said on the radio that when the Taylor was in about across from the electric company, I jumped off the bus.
So, Lise, we're going to have to just take her.
She's talking on a flip phone.
I know.
Like me speak.
Oh, it's a flip
You
phone?
can't never hear. I don't know. I'm just saying that.
Just
Next
what's
call.
amazing, though, we can't hear any of this. The cussing got through
Loud and clear.
Got through.
I tell you, them mother. She's still mad.
All the other stuff but that was like, all the words that got through. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Dr. Debo,
Good morning.
Reverend Dr. Keith Parrish,
Morning.
and Dr. Michelle Bryant.
Good morning, sir.
And again, we need to get full credit, postgraduate credit for y'all's classes y'all hold every day. And that can be worked out if y'all want to get it worked out. I have something, I've been hearing so many people talk so badly about Tim Scott. I just learned something good about Tim Scott. He's fundraising under Trump, and the money that's sent in, he gets 95% of the money. Trump gets 5%. That's good, ain't it?
To the Trump people figure it out. To the Trump people figure out what that is.
Trump
Election
is dealing with
charges.
other stuff. He ain't concerned about real stuff.
That Negro.
Again, you were talking about how they put black people in a position to take the heat for the mess up they had done already. I don't know if you remember some years ago, FHA had a white person in charge, I think like Dr. Carter is now, was for Trump.
Carson.
And they were stealing the money. And I think they put a black guy in there named Samuels.
Sam
And
Pierce.
they
Silent Sam
yeah.
Pierce out of Ronald Reagan.
Look,
Yes.
They kept on stealing the money, but it's under him.
Yeah, because when
And
Carson came in, his family was trying to do all this business in Baltimore through HUD. His son, his wife. Oh man.
And under Reagan, I mean not Reagan, but under Trump, Sean Hannity got a whole lot of FHA money. He's building apartment buildings all under the guys of building low income houses. And what they do is they get all their money and build a few low income houses, and the rest for the rich. And Hannity's over rich.
Yes, sir.
And y'all have a good one.
You too. So let me ask the question. You know, Michelle was saying that that there are probably going to be robust and healthy recalls. Is that one of the ways that we hold MPS accountable? I mean, change it.
It's like the presidential election. If we know what's going on and get out the vote, because they say most of those school board positions, 2 or 3 people be voting.
No, literally,
Except
and that's
for the
why
ones-
you have the school
except
board
for
that
the,
you have.
except for the ones that own there. They have the little packets, and they don't need many, and they get on.
Okay, appreciate you.
Y'all have a
Yesterday,
good one.
George was saying this, and I think maybe this applies when we talk about. I was saying that there's a hierarchy in terms of accountability, and the students at the very bottom of this when it comes to this level of accountability. But George was saying that, and I agree, that the parents have a certain level of responsibility when it comes to the education of their children, right? And so what level of accountability do the parents have? We're talking about the people who are primarily, most directly impacted by what or what does not happen at MPS. So what is the community's level of accountability in terms of MPS and what we do, and in terms of education in general? So those are questions. I'd love to hear what you think when it comes to this level of accountability and who's responsible for what. Maybe there's some people where they have an enormous amount of trust in the education system, and they're saying, you know what, I just trust that they're going to do the right thing. That may or may not be wise. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me. Good morning, Keith, and the rest of the staff. This is Annette. I went through an experience with with one teacher when my children were younger. They called me at work, which was fine with me. and let me know there was a crisis with one of my sons, and that they sent him to CATC. And I didn't argue with him because obviously it was so bad that they had to hold him down with 8 teachers. 8. And so what I did, they said, well, can you come here tomorrow and meet with us? I said, I will be there. My uncle took me there. And keep in mind, I'm a single mom, but I went there. What they did for me is they had the police waiting, not for my sons, but for me. And that's what the union told them to do, for union rep, because they assumed that I was going to come there. And I came in the door, the police officer opened the door. I said, thank you, sir. I walked in the office, and the principal set me down, and I said, I waited, and the principal went back to the desk there and talked to the officer and said, what can I do for you, sir? Yes, I'm looking for the parent of Andre Patterson. And then I got about the principal's office. I said, sir, I am his mother. What can I do for you? And they said, well, I was told to come here for you, ma'am. And I said, well, I don't understand why, so I'll just talk to the principal. And then I did discuss it with her. And her demeanor was very ugly. And what I did is talk to Howard Fuller about it, because that's when Howard Fuller about it. Here's the deal. My son was taken out of the school under my request. It was in the Cold Spring area. And obviously he did have an anger issue. So I wasn't worried about that. It was the treatment of the parents. All parents are thrown in the same bowl. I'm a hardworking mother. I obviously I didn't know that he had with the level of anger he had, but I got him some treatment. My question is, here's the second question I'm asking you though. I'm gonna ask you this question because it's important. I own my own home. And taxes go into these schools. Is there a way that I can find out how much of the tax money goes into the schools to make sure these children get their education? Because I'm one of those type of parents. My kids are in their 40s now. And today's my birthday too, Keith. So
happy birthday!
Yay!
Well, you only turned 35. What 3-4 times?
Hey Keith, I am your age.
Oh.
I am exactly your age.
I didn't know you were 41. Okay. Hey, another 41 year old.
So the thing is that I don't mind spending my taxes and knowing that the schools are doing well. And since Monday, I've been here. I didn't go to no meetings because I'm not well enough to. I'll go down there with my cane, and I know I can't go down there. I know my temper. Oh no! So I had during those years when Howard Fuller was in there, that was a pretty smooth shit. He came in there. He said she did what? He handled that. He handled it. And I'm not saying Mr. Keith, whatever his name was, wouldn't have done it, but I'm with Michelle on that. There's a certain amount of respect that you give somebody. This is just me. You don't go down there and act a fool. You're right, Keith. It starts at home. Okay? And then because if you don't go in the classroom, because I used to work in the homes too, where there's kids. They go and they said, my daughter can take potato chips and eat them in front of the teachers. Oh, I hear it all the time. And it starts at home, Keith. You're absolutely right.
And you know what? That's the real balance. We hear that it starts at home. Some of these parents are
young.
Young, and then and this is, and I don't want to. I need to say this as carefully as I can.
I'll help you. Let me help you with it.
Okay, well, let me throw it out.
Parent teacher, then you parental class, taking parent classes.
No, well, no, I'm not going to get into parenting skills because that's a really fluid thing. Of course, I do that professionally, right? I do an organization that we work with men to help them with their parenting skills. But I wonder, how much do we value as a community education? I think, those things that you value, you put an enormous amount of your treasure into those things that value or you value. So if a car is more important to you than your child's education, what messages are you sending? Because when it comes to sports, for example, whatever it is to take for your son or daughter to be the best athlete, you're going to make that investment, right? The encouragement, the support. I said that it's amazing to me when I watch the youth football leagues and you see all the dads out at the youth football leagues cheering on primarily their sons. There are a couple of girls playing, cheering on their sons. They're present.
Yeah.
Are you there in school though?
Right.
With that same level of involvement, because the message that you're sending, and we're sending it to our males, is that you will be celebrated if you're a great athlete. We may or may not celebrate you the same way if you're a scholar.
All right. Well, you all have a good day.
And you too.
Okay? All right.
414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. Today is Wednesday, is Wednesday's Word. What does accountability look like? If you want to talk particularly in any area, whether it's local government, national government, when you hear that word accountability, what does it mean? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I was going to say, Wednesday's word is accountability. And I've had a number of conversations with Brother Christopher when he talks about the level of responsibility that we have when we sit in these seats in terms of what we do on these airwaves. And it's something that I take very seriously in terms of the level of responsibility we have in terms of this community, and certainly when it comes to the things like information and the information that we put out. I'm not going to use Fox's fair and balanced. That's not what it is. But as much as possible, the information needs to be accurate. And it was someone had texted me, and they were commenting on when we began to talk about a bureaucratic structure as expansive as MPS is. When you look at a $1.5 billion budget, what that looks like, and making sure we clearly understand some of the nuances that goes into these budgets. You hear me arguing with people. Oh, they got the money. Oh, they got the money. And I'm going like, yeah. And the example I always gave was when I was a little guy, and I would go to my mom and I'd ask my mom for money. And I would see that my mother had money. I physically saw the money. And my mama said, I don't have any money. But I'm physically looking at the money. Yes, you do. Her point was, no, I don't. This money is earmarked for bills and other expenses. So the little thing that you're asking for, I don't have, even though I'm sitting here with money, because that money has been designated or earmarked for something that we need to do around the house. I think it's the same thing when it comes to budgeting. When you look at whether it's the city of Milwaukee, when you look at the county, for example, both those they're required by law to have balanced budgets, right? They can't run deficits. And so then that's where you begin to hear when people are talking about either increase in fees or increase in property taxes. Because at some point, if you have where now you're running a deficit, what you then have to do is deal with your greatest cost. The greatest cost is personnel. So now you're cutting positions. I think when people do that, we say, well, you got the money. I mean, you heard that amount, $252 million is a whole lot of money. And you go like, where's that going? But if you're already filling holes, right, that you have to have, and a lot of times funding, they talk about at the state level because they don't index at the state level when it comes to revenue sharing, when it comes to educational support, the cost of education goes up every year. But governmental support from the state has been stagnant. So now at some point, because that is a significant part of budgets, is that then you have a deficit. And by law, you cannot have a deficit. So what happens? You have to cut positions to balance that budget. Now, people go, okay, so someone lost their job. Well, when we were looking at the fiscal cliff, and it's really interesting because when I was talking to Senator LaTanya Johnson, I can remember a private conversation that we had. She and I had maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And because she was aware of what the fiscal condition of the state was, she said it. I think she even said it publicly. Like, the city of Milwaukee is facing bankruptcy. That's just how our tax base being eroded. There are a whole lot of things that factor into it. And then that we do not get back what we send to the state in terms of revenue sharing. Well, it seems like this has been a big issue with many municipalities. But what we put into the state in terms of taxes that's collected in Milwaukee, the city, and then Milwaukee County, we're the biggest in the state. So it does have impact, but we don't necessarily get a return. And because they came up with the idea we're going to finance schools primarily through property tax and state support, Now, there are other things that happens. For example, I think most of the I think it'd be under Title IV, the special ed money comes from the feds, right? A significant amount from the feds and from the state. As a matter of fact, based on some of this accounting, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, it can have a significant impact on special ed. And here's the thing: 23% of MPS's population is special ed. That's almost a quarter of the school population are dealing with various needs that require special education. So I don't know. I got this whole thing about turning paperwork in on time because I was telling Tyrone last night I'm a trained Babylonian, right? I was started off as a file clerk. Understand the importance of filing and keeping records and accurate records and accuracy and determination, all those things. So because it's just drilled into me, I just have little patience when paperwork is late and paperwork is inaccurate. I mean that, and especially if that's your job. And I don't know what else goes on to being chief financial officer at MPS, but I do know that state reports are important. Yeah, they're important. And why that wasn't a priority, how it could go on as long as it had gone on. Now, there are all kinds of questions. And now people are going, because the question Michelle was asking was, well, if DPI knew this, why didn't DPI go public with this before the referendum? And because based on the referendum passing, I think it was 51-49, for many people, that would have killed the referendum. It would have killed the referendum. People would have voted probably overwhelmingly against, because people are asking, which is a legitimate question, if you can't handle the money you have already, why are we giving you more money? That would be a legitimate question that certainly taxpayers can ask in terms of that. And so we probably would have had a different outcome. Now, the question that I have, and again, you all are a lot smarter than me. So is it a question of the institution? I know I do have some listeners who are former MPS teachers or former MPS employees, maybe some currents who are listening too. So I don't know if they would say to me, Keith, has always been this bad. Then that's really frightening. Okay. But here's what it also does. And I don't know if people heard yesterday when the mayor was at a particular press conference talking about fireworks. We're not going to do a June 3rd fireworks this year, but on July the 4th. And I guess, and someone asked the question, would you be willing to the city of Milwaukee, taking over Milwaukee Public Schools? That's interesting. I think there's been mixed results when the mayor or city council has control of a school system. I think that there are Republicans who are chopping at the bit, who love to break up MPS. And when people hear that, maybe it should, I don't know, because and I won't use the word, just to be, clear and honest, I have been I see something happening to education when it impacts Black, brown, and poor people. We're willing to experiment. We're willing to do all these hybrid learning things. And what the results have been is that they have not moved the needle. As a matter of fact, some might argue that it's getting worse in terms of, and one of the measures that we use for public education is where are the kids in terms of their proficiencies, where are they in terms of proficiency when it comes to reading and when it comes to math. Those are the scores that will give you what the performance level of a school is. I don't know if you only have a 17% proficiency level in a subject, that means that, I'm doing the math, 83% of the students are not proficient. So is it the students? and their inability to learn? Is it teachers and their inability to teach? Is it the system that does not adequately resource areas? I heard something I'd never heard before in education, where they said instead of doing your school formula based on population, you should do your school formula based on equity or based on needs, right? So more resources, for example, would go into a school with a higher number of children who are special needs. So now that was the first time I'd heard this idea of equity being applied. Now it's not based on the number of students that you have, but it's based on the needs. I don't know what the pitfalls of that particular approach might be, and I don't know who determines then what the need is, right? What constitutes a need that requires more resources than something else as opposed to population. Okay. One of the other things that we have to look at, and I don't know if there's a shortage of teachers, but there are probably not a lot of teachers who are kicking down the doors wanting to go in and teach in an urban school district just because of all the problems many urban school districts face in the world. But let's say now that you have enough teachers, because one of the things, especially at the elementary level, and when I heard this one sister, I don't know if I'm correct or not, Angela Harris was talking about, she has second graders, and I think she said she had about 30 kids in her class. Now, most educators will tell you that that's far too many students for one teacher. It's far too many. I mean, if you, especially on the elementary level, right? Because just the need and how you instruct on the elementary level is very different than when you're in high school. In high school, you can have 30 kids in the class, right? Because that's a totally different way of learning at that point in their maturation in school. So when you look at that, so the ideal student-teacher ratio, elementary level, especially the lower grades, is about 1 to 15. But if you have a situation where you don't have enough teachers and you assign teachers to this and that, and so now you can have where in certain classrooms in the second, third, first grade, you can have a teacher there with 30 kids or 25 kids or even 20 kids. That's a lot of kids. And again, because of how they're learning, how their brains are developing at that point, the amount of hands-on that you have to do, the younger the kids are. Again, I'm not a trained pedagogic, but I think that's kind of how it works. One of the things that you find, if you go in and do profiles of school districts, they do a couple of things: the number of kids who graduate, where they are in terms of proficiency, and then the other thing is they talk about student-teacher ratio in classrooms, because that becomes really important. Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Parris, it's Elise again, but it was a typo in what you were saying earlier at the beginning of the show. It was a closed meeting, and then it came open. I called the radio station, and I asked how could I go, and I called. It was for viral on the telephone number, and then I found out that you can sign up, and at the bottom of the paper, it had 2 main subjects, and I had a choice of being informational, because I knew I didn't know anything about the other 2. The following day, they said the meeting was open to the public and you can voice your opinion. It was not just on those 2 subjects, whatever the words you used, and that was on those papers. And I checked the box for informational because I wanted to talk about me.
Right.
And how I live and survive. Yeah, I'm done.
No, I want you to hang up. No, what I wanted to say to you was the agenda items that they had on there were 3. The first agenda item was...
I don't even know nothing about that.
But this is why I'm trying to explain it to you. So the first agenda item was the 24-25 budget. The second was the situation and update on what was going on and how they were going to handle the situation with DPI. And then they also mentioned that they're going to go into closed session to deal with a personnel issue, something with a public official. They never said who it was. So
Yeah.
based on that, now if I'm just following what Robert's rules of order
No,
are,
I'm saying what I heard on the news. The first time after I saw Michelle in that one meeting,
Mhm.
and then and there was no more meetings. Then all of a sudden it was a closed meeting because I watched the news. I watch all the channels, and I saw Michelle, and I'm like, I'm going, But anyway, then it was going to be closed and to discuss, which should have been like that because they do not need 100 more me in the educated level. That's what I was upset about.
by law they can't. You can't be part of that conversation by law.
No, I didn't want to.
Right.
I didn't want to. And after I saw how they roll, it's like a 5,000 of me, Keith, but educated.
Right.
I didn't miss nothing. Only thing I went through is the beatings. They didn't probably get that, but they went to school.
Okay.
And that's what I'm talking about. And then when you invite me in and I get there and I see me and my adopted mother 5,000 times live, it was like I went to hell and back.
Okay.
And that hurt my feelings, no matter what it was about.
They called your name. They called your name 3 times.
Yeah, I left because the way they was talking to that man up there. And I went to the bathroom, lost my seat. They wouldn't let me go in the basement. They followed me in the bathroom. And then, but the very first speaker and how we show out, I saw me and my adopted mother all over again. Okay. And if anybody want to know and how to explain it better of Solis Chapman, ask Adeline Presley. She was my counselor for almost 2 years. I graduated on 6 and keep in prison with her. She could tell y'all more about me better than I can.
All right.
That's what hurt me.
Okay. All right. It was really interesting because obviously this is a topic of discussion in my home, and an observation was made, and I just tell you, man, this is the sickness of America when it comes to this, and I put in quotations, race issue. I don't know. We listed in terms of leadership that many of our local governmental agencies have Black leadership, right? And particularly Black male leadership. When you look at the mayor, look at the county exec, and you look at the police chief, and he still is right now to the end of the month, the superintendent of public schools. I guess my question is, and I don't know how sensitive this is as a question, because this was part of our discussion, was how do we, I know how it seems that people reacted when it came to the personal attacks on Dr. Posley. And people were saying, because I think there was a situation where, and I don't know if that was what Mike had overheard, Mike Harper, but there was something that was going on right in the back, and there was like 3 or 4 white male MTEA members, and they were making side comments, especially when it came to Keith Posley. And to the point, I think I mentioned it, a brother turned to them and said, you know what? I'm getting tired of hearing all this racist stuff that you all are saying. And they kept going, we're not being racist. We're not being racist. We're not being racist. And they kept saying it. They must have, because to the point that he got up, removed himself from the area, then wanted to speak with the president of the union. And this is that then when that white woman with the phone that Michelle is talking about came up and said, you don't talk to her. You don't talk to her. And his point was, you have union members in the back here making what appears to be racially charged statements. I'm telling you that this is what I'm hearing. You're dismissing me like I don't even want to hear that. Then this white woman comes in and she wants to be, I don't know when it took on that she became security, because I didn't see her with NPS at all, with the exception of the chief of NPS security. Everybody had on something that identified them as NPS security. And here this woman's going back and forth. And what happens is, and this is why this is such a sensitive conversation, is that when the person looks a certain way and we have biases, whether implicit or obvious, then we can fall behind, oh no, man, we're going after dude because he's a poor administrator and he shouldn't have the job. Okay. I don't know what names you would be calling or what illusions you would be using if that was a white male and he was in the same situation as Dr. Keith Posley. Would we be hearing those same things? Obviously, the answer is no. And so what people have been able to do, and these people, oh, I love my students. And you're looking at them. First of all, you're being, what's the word? I wouldn't get into your condescension because you're already saying that somehow these kids are just socially and in whatever way intellectually inferior, and we have to do what we need to do to get them up. You're part of the systemic racism that has impacted our children because in your well-meaning, and I'm great, and it ain't like you volunteering to teach, you get paid to teach. That's the whole other piece. You get paid to teach. You know, these are not volunteers who are going in and we're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. And you might care very much about your kids, but you might want to examine your own embedded biases. Because, you know, we all are victims of our environment. And if you grew up in a lily white environment where you had no real contact with descendants of enslaved Africans, no real contact with indigenous people, no real contact with people who are Spanish or others, even though you might be cool in your environment, you're still impacted by your environment. And if you don't identify those things that was put into you in your environment, then it will manifest itself in your attitude towards the people that you're working with. I've seen it happen in social services. We see it happen in education. We see it happen in politics. The reason why these kids are in the situation that they're in is because of racist systemic policies that have been in place since enslavement. There you go, Michelle. Always gets back to enslavement. So for all of a sudden for you to come and feel like you're the great white hope, that dog ain't gonna hunt. Caller, welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning. First thing I want to say is we should have never voted for that referendum because if they didn't do right with the first money, they wasn't going to do right with the second, and I didn't vote for it. Number two, I'm not going to condemn the conduct of our people. My only problem is Posley was not in it by himself. And just as well as you big bad loudmouth with Posley, you got to be that way with everybody because people will respect you more. And hopefully when they do put somebody in that position, it's going to take two parties. It's going to take the teachers, and it's also going to take the parents to raise some of them badass kids. Because can't nobody learn if mama and daddy is sending their kids to school as if it's a daycare. Nobody should be chastising something you made at 2 a.m. And if you cannot answer the teacher call, maybe you need to keep them children at home with yourself and you can teach them yourself. It's a two-party thing, and it takes both people to do their part. And hopefully after this, we both will do our part. And hopefully when black people decide to be loudmouth with Chief Posley, you will be that way with them racists and those Republicans. So if you're going to be big and bad with your own, you got to be big and bad with some racists. And then people will respect you more. And I want all y'all to have a good day.
You know what, Al, is real interesting you say that. The late Eric Vaughn talked about Scott Walker. And he said, you know what? They'd be blowing up my phone lines. All the awful things that they say on the phone lines about Scott Walker. Oh, God, they're going to have a community meeting, and Scott Walker is there, and they're going to come in and tell Scott Walker what they think. These Negroes show up, barely a whimper. They're deferential. They're respectful. So then you have a black man, which I think has nothing to do with how they're running the system, but unfortunately we go on what we see. We are sensual people. And so now you got a black man, and even I said this yesterday, we got our own internalized racism that we're dealing with, and especially when it comes to other black people.
Well, the problem is, see, we have no love and value. So we'll disrespect each other, but we'll show every tooth to that white man. So
and he gave the example. He said at Metropolitan, they had a big thing. He came in and all these folks were upset. He said by the time they left, oh, everybody was just, oh, that Scott Walker's a great guy. Oh, he's a great. Now, Negro, you was just on my radio program calling him everything but Satan. You get to the meeting because, and this gets back to white Jesus. We do not press white Jesus. We look at white males get a level of respect and deference that nobody else in this culture gets. Every now and then you have somebody might say something, but they weren't going to be clowning like we saw them clown Posley. Oh, no.
And that's the reason why we are where we are, because they know we big and bad with each other. But when it comes to that other man that y'all see as Jesus, y'all on your best behavior. Have a good day and don't put too much sugar in the coffee.
All right, appreciate you, man. Don't put any at all. No, that and so when people hear this, and I know for my Christian believing friends, they go, why are you always on white Jesus? Why are you always on white Jesus? There you go, talking about white Jesus again. I talk about white Jesus because white Jesus is iconic. Because first of all, Jesus was not European. Jesus was Asian. He was a Semitic individual. I just watched this great documentary, and I would tell all my folks out there, it is incredible. It is called From Christ to Constantine, and it talks about the formation of the Christian church. And some of that history that we're not aware of, we need to be aware of. And then we need to clearly understand that when people, I was thinking about it this morning, I know I get in a whole lot of trouble. So there's two things I think sometimes get black people in trouble: white Jesus and the Bible. White Jesus and the Bible. White Jesus being that iconic creation that we've had. And so for black people, white Jesus is your white slave owner. That's who it looks like. And so then we're taught, follow the master. Follow the master. And what does the master look like? Hey, he looks like white Jesus. So that's why I push back on this thing, because it's not even biblically accurate to call Jesus white or call Jesus European, right? They're so late to this whole scene, the Europeans, on this piece. The other piece of it is, then, during enslavement, if they let you see a book, it was the Bible, right? And so in our community, the Bible has outsized influence on things that it shouldn't. Like, for example, science. Okay, science. The issue around abortion, for me, is not a question of what the Bible says about abortion, because the Bible says nothing about abortion. Now, you can go in and say, thou shalt not kill. Okay. But then what does the Bible say about conferring personhood on a fetus? The Bible is silent on that. So if people say we're doing it for religious reasons, something that is really a medical procedure. Now, at the same time, for a woman to be able to exercise that choice over what she's going to do with her body, and whether or not, for whatever reason, she wants to carry that pregnancy to term, then we turn it into everything but what it is. And so then it gets to these so-called anti-abortion people who are pro-life as long as it's in the woman's womb. They do nothing for life once it's outside the womb. And all the supportive things that will happen to make that child thrive, these are the very same people who say cut the aid. These are the very same people who say underfund public education, right? So we're having this discussion, and then because we're so superstitious and we so scared, that then they're going to go like, oh, did they say the Lord said we're supposed to do that? And there's no way the Lord ever said you're supposed to do that. So I get frustrated with that kind of, you're going to argue with me, even though the facts are telling you something entirely different. You still going to argue with me that, for example, that man came from Adam and Eve. No, it makes sense. Now, I understand it's in the Bible. It's in the Old Testament, and as a Christian, the Old Testament doesn't have the same power as the New Testament. Never mind that little fact, but it's in the Bible. Slavery is in the Bible. I didn't agree with it when I read in the Bible. I didn't agree with it when my ancestors were victimized by it. I don't agree with it today because there are people who are still enslaving people. I do not believe that that is divinely ordained. So, yeah, if I get a little frustrated, but a lot of times we're taking beliefs and substituting them for facts. Someone just hit me with that. Did you take a belief and you run with it like it's fact? It's a belief. It ain't a fact. You might believe I could run through this window and nothing's going to happen to me. You can believe that. The fact is, when you run to the window and try to run through the window, something's going to happen to you. That's a fact. So when we're looking at it, and someone had pointed out that a lot of times we don't know, and I wanted to say this: don't be arrogant in your ignorance. Say it one more time. Stop being arrogant in your ignorance. Michelle, it was so, first of all, she's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my whole life. Yeah, I got to do it. I got to say, I know it's her. I'm going to be sore in the morning. But this idea that your anger can justify your not knowing, you're not taking the time to even bother to know. Because I'll bet you a dime to a donut. If President Hurton had said, look, I want you to pass out the MPS budget or make the MPS budget available for the people sitting in the audience, because again, the agenda item said that they were there to talk about what was happening with DPI. They addressed that by saying that they have a person that they've assigned to take care of that little thing. Not little thing's a big thing. And then they said to talk about the budget. How can we talk about something that we don't even have? So it was a ruse because they understood, based on the meeting that they had that previous Thursday, that all of a sudden the issues came up. Now, here's the big question. Talk about accountability. Now that Dr. Posley is gone, where do we go from here? I'd love to hear the very folks who were upset and went after him. And I know that for some of us, it's a whole lot easier to go after folks that look like us. Hey, George, this might be black on black crime. I don't know. But yeah, that becomes the frustration. That becomes a frustration. And then the other piece of it, we talk about our children's behavior. And I say this all the time. A child doesn't learn how to cuss necessarily on the street. A child learns how to cuss at home, right? Child starts acting out at home. The child will exhibit how to resolve conflict based on how they saw conflict resolved in the home. So if you got a constant situation where people fighting, call people out their names, this just becomes normal. This is just what we do. The kids are sitting there and you tell them don't do it, but the kids are sitting there watching you. And guess what they're going to do? Based on their programming, based on what they saw in the crib, when they get outside, how they going to act? So if you don't resolve conflict in a positive way, and I know how difficult that is, it ain't easy, right? But then what are the kind of behaviors that we're exhibiting in front of our kids? And so here we're at a school board meeting talking about education for our kids. Ooh, look at that crowd. Look at talking about the education for our kids, and you cutting up. You talk about, and I hope you're not sitting at the crib talking about you need to respect me when you don't respect other folks. What level of hypocrisy is that? So then that becomes, chickens coming home to roost. And so these children they're the ones, they're not even collateral. They're the ones who are suffering in all of this. And I heard somebody say this. So when adults up doing your thing and doing, my late friend, I'm going to use this term, is after 10 o'clock. He said, people up doing, talking about public speaking, they're doing their public masturbation. They just want to get up. And I told them, okay, you told us, but where is it leading us? That's great that you want to get up and you said the thing. Oh, girl, you told him. Oh, dude, you really showed her. Okay, good. You've expressed your anger. What's the next step? And I'm not hearing a whole lot of next steps. Now that coalition of black educators, I think that was the group. They did at least have 6 things they like to see happen to reform MPS. But other folks were there just kind of going like, we just mad. And we need to fire the superintendent. Okay. All right. So you got the superintendent fired. But guess what? Kids at MPS are still underperforming. Guess what? There is a real possibility that MPS could be taken over or MPS could be broken up. Now, maybe for a lot of folks to say, well, okay, it don't make a difference. Why don't we do that? We have to be careful because you put things out there and there are folks who are listening. Trust me, there are people, I know they listen to Michelle. I know they listen to Michelle. I know they listen to me. They're supposed to monitor this because if you drop certainly an elected official's name, isn't it amazing? I could drop an elected official's name and then all of a sudden that elected official's calling. Well, and I saw this happen in real time. Michelle was criticizing Mayor Barrett. And Michelle was legitimate in her criticism, by the way. And all of a sudden, there's a phone call. Guess who's on the line? Mayor Barrett. They have people right now who listen. I have people come up who work with different folks. And they said, oh, man, I heard what y'all was talking about on the program. So they're monitoring what it is. They're hearing what it is. So when you call in, trust me, they're listening. They're listening. They want to, because they need to find out that's the intel that you do. I had a coworker who I later found out to be very deeply involved in the Republican Party, and I'm only mentioning this. He happened to be a white gentleman, liked him a lot, but really conservative. And he, when I got to work one day, was commenting on what I had talked about or what we had talked about on my mom's radio program. And I'm going, let me get this straight. You listen to WGLB? A white guy from the South Side? Why are you listening to WGLB? Because there are times when there are conversations. My favorite one. This is my favorite one. So people know I'm opposed to choice. People know that I've been opposed to it from day one. And so we're having a whole discussion about choice, and I'm going through my very elaborate, in my mind, well-formed argument against choice. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call on my mom's radio program. No. It was the late Bishop Daniels. And so we had this conversation because part of it he agreed with. The argument was, I don't know how you're expecting to get the same level of education. If MPS is struggling, and right now I think we'll see the per student expenditures for MPS based on the infusion of the referendum dollars will put them up there with Racine, where be about $16,000 per student, right? Now, when we hear that, that's a whole lot of money, but you got to remember 20+% of MPS's population is special needs, which means that more money then is invested in that type of education. And so he called in. He was listening, or somebody was listening, and they could have been saying Keith is on that rant again about choice. And I was going like, oh, well, at that point, Bishop Daniels certainly good. And we had it was a conversation. So what I'm saying is that people are listening. They're listening because if they're being political at all, they know. And, we kind of, it's tongue in cheek when you say that when such and such wanted to get their message out to the black community, they came to WNOV. That's real talk. That's real talk. And it doesn't really matter if it's Republicans or Democrats. We're getting ready to come up to what we call now Christmas for radio stations. Media outlets, the election time, right? And to be fair and balanced, if we're running ads on this station to support the Biden-Harris ticket, the Trump people have the same opportunity to buy time to make their argument. And trust me, and we had people who are, and we have people who are not Democrats, they're Republicans. We need to have those voices, because when we begin to talk about our community and say we're not a monolith, we're not. Now, I can tell you that 80+% of Black people probably are going to, at this point, vote Democratic. But that ain't all of us, right? Mono means, kind of just one, everybody. It's not all of us. And so we do have divergent views out there. There are some times where, people are talking about the Republican Party putting their headquarters right there on King Drive in North, right? If you're in the city of Milwaukee, here's the one thing that they did, whether you like their policies or not, they're spending money in the Black community. Now, some people, no, they're spending money in the Black community. And so, because they're paying rent there for that place, right? So it's not a vacant building. And so it's out there. It's the messaging that we have in terms of things. So again, Wednesday's word is accountability. I don't know why I went on that particular rant. White Jesus just sets me off, man. It sets me off. Oh God, white Jesus. It's just, man. Well, white Jesus. You're right when we asked that question. And by the way, you were correct. It is redundant. So anyway, 414-444-5250. Gonna take a break. All right, you're listening to Community Voice. Call ICU. I'm gonna grab you right after the break. We'll be right back.
Hello, Milwaukee. I'm Clarence P. Nicholas, president of the Milwaukee branch NAACP. Please join me the second Monday of every month at 10 a.m. on the Community Voice, hosted by Keith Parrish. I will discuss what's been happening as well as the upcoming celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Milwaukee branch NAACP in October.
June 15th, the Wisconsin Black Chamber of Commerce presents A Taste of Black Milwaukee featuring men who cook at the Black Chamber, 2900 West Philippe. Kicking off at 11 a.m. with the 23rd Annual Men Who Cook. Come out and celebrate our fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins, and husbands as they show Milwaukee that men can cook. The day before Father's Day. Come sample the goodness and vote for that one that made you go back and ask for another sample. Then 2 to 7:30 p.m. It's the second annual Taste of Black Milwaukee. We're all familiar with the Taste of Chicago, where we're putting Milwaukee's Black-owned restaurants on the map. Come sample some of your favorites and discover who's new on the scene. June 15th, 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., A Taste of Black Milwaukee featuring men who cook, 2900 West Philippe. For more details, visit the website, twbcc.com. That's twbcc.com.
Urban Vibes, community conversation where we all have a seat at the table. Join the conversation every first Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. with me, Karen Dotson, from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. We will discuss health issues affecting Black and Brown communities and share how health research can help find solutions in the future. Learn from special guests each month, and please join us at the table for real conversation every first Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. at 860 WNOV and 106.5 FM.
WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee. WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee. You're inside Community Voice on WNOV 860 AM and 106.5 FM with your host, Keith Parris.
All right, welcome back to Community Voice. And again, just so people know, Wednesday's word is accountability, and what that needs, what that looks like. I don't know. This is really I don't know if it's complicated, but it is complicated because of race and sex. Everybody knows that Caitlin Clark. Well, you know, I don't think there's anybody who's made the splash that she has when it comes to impact on the WNBA. I mean, she's selling out arenas. And so the reception that she has received has been less than nice from some of the players. Okay. But it sounds like also the reception that Angel Reese is getting has been less than nice. But we're really, really talking about now Caitlin Clark. And so there was a situation, I think it was Friday, either Friday or Thursday, where this woman's name is Chennedy. I can't think of her last name now. Really took a hard foul. I know Michelle talked about it. No, Michelle talked about the clothesline that it was a Thomas put on Angel Reese. So this young lady came up and she did a hard foul. I mean, the girl didn't have the ball. She just went and knocked her down. And there is then Angel Reese on the bench cheering the foul. Well, white. Oh Lord, they now part of this is she is the golden goose. Whether we want to accept that fact or not, there have been better players who have come into the WNBA, but those players have not necessarily put meat in the seats, and they certainly haven't put eyes on television. Every place she is playing, she being Caitlin Clark, they're selling out. It is so rare for a WNBA game to sell out, to the fact that based on what their normal attendance is, 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, they're going to arenas now where it's 13,000. I think whatever it used to be Market Square Arena, her home games, it seats 17,000. They sell out. So whether we like it or not, she's making a whole lot of money for the WNBA, right? A whole lot of eyes are watching that wouldn't watch before, which again just talks about the sickness of, and I put in parentheses, racism, and how pervasive it is. I was watching Fox. I watch Fox not for the news. I watch Fox for the reaction to the news, right? Because that's basically what they're doing. And so they were having this discussion of Fox Friends in the morning, and and you know what, Michelle, you are so right. They got this one brother, this Negro. Oh man, he just teeth. Anyway, so the issue came up, and one of the white male commentators was saying, oh, there's a lot going on here. I don't know if it's because she's a woman. I don't know if it's because she's white. Right there. Yes. We wouldn't be having this conversation if Angel Reese was the number one pick in the WNBA draft last year. As good as Angel Reese is, I think she still needs to work on parts of her game, but we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I can argue that it's not just the black players that are reacting to Caitlin Clark, because Diana Taurasi has nothing good basically to say about Caitlin Clark. Because for a lot of these women, they have been out. I think the WNBA is 27 years old. I mean, very little attention, even though you had probably some of the greatest basketball players. You know, when you look at Maya Moore, you look at Candace Parker, you look at Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Swoops, Diana Taurasi. I mean, even now, you know, you got Brianna Stewart. Oh, Brianna Stewart is a beast. I mean, but they're toiling. These women had to go overseas. The reason why Brittany Griner was in the situation she was in was because she could make far more money playing basketball in Russia than she could here. So these women go overseas. That's why some of these women are fluent in different foreign languages, because they spent 3-4 years there. Cynthia Cooper talks about when she played in Italy. And she said by the time it was all done, she was fluent in Italian. So this idea, she's the great white hope. Hopefully she won't be the great white hype. There have been a whole lot of folks who come along, and you really put them now. Everybody knows, I will tell you, no victims, just volunteers. And she's doing pretty well financially. She's doing very well financially. Not from the WNBA, but because of who she is and her playing basketball. Got to call her. Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Mr. Parris, is Michelle Bryan still in? I had to go down the street to Wauwatosa Glass, so I couldn't hear the radio.
No, she's gone.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So anyway, and I guess they're saying statistically, Caitlin Clark is having one of the better rookie seasons for people for a while. So it ain't like she ain't out there trying to ball. But yeah, there is some jealousy, and I hate to, you know, kind of bring up this little thing. And this is just how pervasive racism is, and just how baked it is into our beings, and people don't even realize they have these biases. So everyone remembers when LSU beat Iowa to win the national championship for women college basketball 2 years ago. It is a tradition that you invite the winning teams to the White House. Dr. Jill Biden said, can't we invite the losers too? Because these young ladies show so much sportsmanship. Now, I don't know if she understood that, because I don't know if she would have the same reaction. I don't know. I can't speak for her. If she would have the same reaction had it been South Carolina. Because actually, Iowa beat South Carolina. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah, they beat South Carolina. So if it would have been LSU and South Carolina in the finals and LSU won, would she have wanted to invite South Carolina? And I think once she kind of realized it, she pulled it back. But her first react, now Iowa lost. I mean, and not only did they lose, they lost pretty badly. This year, it was competitive, but it was no question that South Carolina was going to win that game. They were the better team. Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, what's up, George?
I'm going to be real quick because you talk about accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hearing on the radio and on the talk shows not to put 45 in jail. Now, this dude ain't showing no remorse.
None.
No remorse at all.
Nope.
So if he doesn't be held accountable for what he's doing, what's going to stop him from keep on doing what he's doing? And if he loses again, what's going to stop him from wanting to run again?
Well, he can run. He can run as much as he want to run. He just can't serve two terms, more than 2 terms.
And if he gets in, and I truly believe this in the bottom of my heart, and if he's got both houses, or that they will try and overturn that, where he can serve more than 1 term. I truly believe that, Keith.
Well, that would require a constitutional amendment, unless, and I don't know, I guess this is a possibility, I don't know how probable it is that, you know, you suspend the Constitution. Now, I don't know how you do that. I mean, I'm sure there's a way that you could. The Supreme Court?
Yep. And if he's got it stacked, and if he's got them stacked, trust me, Keith, it can happen. It can happen. It's a possibility.
Yeah, and I'm acknowledging that. I'm just now part of maybe why Trump is getting the kind of juice that he's getting is that people don't want to make the same mistake that was made in 2016 when people said there was no way he could win, right? Now, even when you look at they talk about the poll numbers and where he is. First of all, it's a long time between now and November, and two, I don't know.
Not that long, Keith.
Huh?
Not that long.
No, what I mean though, but for politics, we're going to move on. For example, and somebody hold us accountable for it. See if we're still talking about MPS 2 weeks from now.
Probably
okay.
will, but can I just jump on one more thing?
Sure.
Well, welcome to the big league.
Yeah.
Keith, when I was watching those games, Keith, all of us brothers that know how to play basketball, we would shut her down. And I was looking at the coaches. You throw two people at her and take her strong side away from her. That's all they had to do in college. It would have been a whole different.
Well, that's what South Carolina did.
Stuff like that.
That's what South Carolina did.
And that's all they had to do. That stuff would have been shut down a long time ago. So now she's in the big league. Because you're right, Keith. I don't know if you watch First Take. Do you record it and you go home yesterday? I was so proud. Usually Stephen A. get on my nerves.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes, I saw. I was going to talk a little bit
Keith,
about that.
I was so proud of him yesterday, Keith. I was so proud of him because we know what it's all about. This white girl that came into the league because Angel Reese got clothesline real good.
Oh man. Oh, dude.
And did you hear anything about it?
No, and then they pointed out, they said, look, Candace Parker, I don't know what game she got in her rookie year. She got in a fight. Man. She was like, yeah, because
bulldogs.
Yeah, so she's like, yeah, you got to show them that you ain't punk. That's what Angel Reese was saying. Said, I ain't mad at Thomas. That's the game. But I'm gonna keep coming at her. So don't think.
And when you run in your mouth, Keith, because she's got a tendency to run or flap her jaws. When you flap your jaws, just like in the NBA, you got your Draymond Greens and stuff. You got them in women basketball too, and they gonna come and get you.
Well, I guess the WNBA is becoming like the NBA, and the foul has been committed in the WNBA since its inception because you hear everybody out there whining. I mean, it just be like, well, y'all stop. You fouled them, dude. Dude, we throw a flag if this was football. That's just how bad you hurt this dude. What?
I'm not going to take anything away from some of her skills, Keith, but welcome to the big league.
Right, and I don't think she's a punk. I don't think, but she does do a lot of crying. She be looking for fouls. It's going like, you're not going to get them. You're just not going to get them. I'm sorry.
She's a crybaby. Keith, to me, she's a crybaby.
Oh, yeah. But I wish she was the only one. But she ain't. I'm telling you, man, basketball players, and it's really funny because, the NBA had this influx of European players, right? And a lot of these European players also play soccer. What happens when you blow on a soccer player? What's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to go down and act like they got run over by a Mack truck, right? You're going like, dude, what happened? And dude just blew on him. And then you see the replay, this wasn't even close because in soccer, that's what they taught to do. You fall and you look like you're in the worst pain you've ever been in your whole life. That's why we have that anti-flopping rule, because European players would flop in the New York Minute, man.
I got to go. The boss is fussing at me.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Peace.
Yeah. Caller, welcome to the program.
Hey, Keith.
Good morning.
Good morning. The word you said was what? Accountability?
Uh-huh.
That means that's responsible, right? Responsibility. Uh-huh. I got a question for you. First of all, when you talk about basketball, Cheryl Miller is the greatest.
Oh, the greatest
female I ever seen,
no
man.
Question.
Yeah. And I got another question. I'm kind of torn with the politics.
Uh-huh.
I love Lakeisha Myers. I mean, I think she's smart. I love what she says. But I was doing a little digging. She used to work with Trent Lott in Mississippi.
Yeah, she was part of his staff on the Hill.
Yeah, I heard a guy in the barber shop saying that. And I said, no way, man. He said, yeah.
Yeah.
He said the early 2000s or something like that.
Well, I think that when you look at the opportunity, obviously she's talked about it. She did not embrace. I'm assuming she did not embrace a lot of his policies.
Yeah, he loves Strom Thurmond. That's why.
Right, but I think in terms of you learning how to work in the Capitol, right, and because when he leader, he was Senate leader, right?
And
so now
he got kicked out as leader because what he said about Strom Thurmond.
Right.
He said, I love Strom Thurmond. He's a good man of the South. And he's a avowed racist.
Who had a black daughter.
Right.
Who had a black daughter.
Yes.
It's funny. I work with someone. She's from the great state of South Carolina. And even before all this really hit, she used to say, Strom Thurmond would go because she was I think she went to South Carolina State.
Yeah, he paid for college.
Right. That's in Orangeburg, right?
Yep.
And he said he would go and visit. I guess he would stop by the house, give her gifts on Christmas. And that's the piece about racism. I'm sorry. That's the piece about racism that's so just, it's a sickness, man. I mean, and I understand the financial.
It is, but it's always been. That's my point.
Right.
I mean, that's common
for
your master to have babies by the slave woman.
And you know what's really crazy? It went on in America, but it really didn't go on much. And really in America, it didn't go on like it did in Brazil. You know, in Brazil, it was those folks, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, had no problems with having relations with people who were from Africa.
You know why, right? Because Brazil had a policy that if they interbred with Africans, then they wouldn't have a race problem.
Right.
They would all be one color. That's why.
Right. But then they understood that the reason their economic benefit was race.
Absolutely.
You know, and people, so,
Absolutely.
and we know that it has an emotional, it resonates with us emotional when you've been victimized by racism, but you need to understand, don't get it twisted. It was created to support colonization and enslavement.
Absolutely.
And to the point that, and I forgot about this little piece. One of the greatest courses I ever took in college was white ethnics in America. And so if you came from Bulgaria, if you came from Russia, you're a Russian Jew. If you came from Italy, the other Europeans, i.e. the Germans and the English, they looked down on those folks. And so when they came to America, they would confer on them whiteness. Right. Now, you would assume that everybody's white. I was telling this story. I found out very quickly that all white people ain't the same. Okay? Right. So if I would have went to Bayview, my brother went to Bayview. There were very different white people at Bayview than the white people I went to school with at Dominican. Right? Because it's class.
At that time, that was economically
right
people,
right,
blessed people, yeah,
right. So you would hear Polish jokes, you know, because there weren't a lot of Polish people. One guy in my class was Polish, but there weren't a lot. The people that predominantly of those Europeans at that school were Germans and Irish, followed then by the Italians. Okay, and then you had some other folks there, but then the separation was. We had white kids from the northwest side of Milwaukee who went to Dominican. They were looked at very differently than the white kids who lived on the shore being Shorewood, Fox Point, Whitefish Bay.
Yeah.
Right. And so that piece of it, we miss because the whole emotional piece of it is, but then when you look at it, look at how resources are allocated. I was talking to Julie and Brenda. They did a study. They talked about CNAs. They said that when a particular field has an overrepresentation.
What? I'm sorry. What is CNA?
CNA, certified nursing assistants.
Oh, okay.
And they were saying that the wages will be depressed the browner the population is.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
there's systemic things in there that, like I said, and I hate to use the term so baked in. That's what critical race theory talks about in terms of the criminal justice system. It is so much racism baked into it. So it's insulting to black people when we know that there have been black men, particularly, who have been railroaded by the justice system. You have a guy who's obvious that he's done what he's done.
Hey, we
right?
live it. We
And
live
then,
it.
right. And then talk about how the justice system is rigged. And this dude don't drink. This dude don't smoke.
Thank God he don't.
Right. I mean, it's like, really? And then, and trust me, there's some Negroes out there going like, yeah, man, I'm with him, man, because he going through the same thing I'm going through. I can't use the word Negro. He is not.
I got you.
He is not. And the fact that he can do this and people believe it. Remember, I started this kind of my rant on white Jesus is that you can believe something, but there's the facts. You know, like Barack Obama was not an American citizen. He wasn't born in America. When Barack Obama was born, Hawaii was a state in America. And it didn't matter if he was born in America because his mama's American, right? Which means that he is a U.S. citizen because at least one of his parents are U.S. citizens.
Right.
And so people ran with that, you know. So man, dude.
You could say, if you said that, you could say Ted Cruz. How was Ted Cruz able to run for president?
Right. Or I got one. John McCain wasn't he born in Mexico?
Yeah, his father was in the military.
His father was in the military.
Air Force.
Right. And you have where people who I think I have one. I don't know. I had to ask my sister. I think one of my nieces and nephews were born overseas, or maybe they're all born here. But, you know, they were stationed in Japan. They were stationed in England. So if she had the baby there, it really didn't matter where she had the baby because she's a U.S. citizen. Oh, by the way, Donald Trump and others are talking about getting rid of that particular clause. I think that's in either 13th or 14th Amendment, that whole native born piece, where you get rid of that. So, okay, your mom and daddy is American citizens and you weren't born here, you don't get the natural right. Or if mom and dad comes here illegally and you're born here, you're a U.S. citizen. Well, that's where the anchor babies thing come from?
I think they're afraid of numbers. They are definitely afraid of numbers.
Oh, man, real talk. But then I say this, and me and Meech goes back and forth on this. You can be numerically the largest minority group, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't have any money.
Money is power.
Right. It's a whole lot of you, but a whole lot of you were poor. So the benefit in the numbers. Now, the one benefit you have is the ability to vote. So you can impact elections.
Equalize it.
There you go. But when it comes to like economic peace, I'm reading a book right now, The Race for Profit, talking about discrimination and racism and housing and how systemic it's been and how long it's been. And here's one little thing before I go. Most other people got some form of reparation when they left enslavement. Black people got nothing, no land, no nothing. Couldn't even participate in some of the land rushes.
That's deep.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, man. You know who else I put up there too, though? Maya Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Maya Moore. And Candace Parker. I think Candace Parker and Cheryl Miller just had
Miller just had something.
Right. And Cheryl Miller never got a chance to play in the WNBA.
Right.
So, all right, man. All right, bro. You're listening to Community Voice. We're up on the last break of the program. We'll be right back.
The Granville Blues Fest
is an annual celebration of blues music held in Granville, a vibrant neighborhood known for its rich cultural heritage and love for the blues. This festival typically spans a weekend, drawing both local enthusiasts and blues aficionados from afar. The event features an impressive lineup of regional and national talented blues musicians and bands, showcasing a diverse range of styles within the genre, from soulful ballads to electrifying guitar solos. Attendees are treated to a dynamic array of performances that capture the essence of the blues. In addition to live music, the Granville Blues offers a variety of activities and attractions to engage visitors of all ages. The festival creates a vibrant and inclusive atmosphere where people from all walks come together to appreciate the power and beauty of the blues. Granville Blues Fest, June 14th through the 16th at Granville Connection, 8633 West Brown Deer Road. WNOV 860 AM and 106.5 FM, the voice of the community, wants to give you a chance to win the funkiest Father's Day giveaway ever. Be the 8th or 9th caller whenever you hear.
Ain't no drag. Papa's got a brand new bag.
To qualify for the grand prize. The grand prize includes a $250 gift certificate to Stein's Jewelry, a $200 American Express gift card to Shop Till You Drop, a $100 gift certificate from Nickavani's men's store so you can get that perfect outfit, a $150 complete car detail from Do Right Detailing and Car Wash, 12 Summerfest tickets to take the whole family out, a $100 gift card to the Red Crab Seafood Restaurant, and a 60-minute workout and consultation with a private fitness trainer from Divine Intervention Fitness. Oh my God, this package is valued at over $1,000. So if you want a chance to qualify for the funkiest Father's Day giveaway ever, be the 8th or 9th caller whenever you hear.
Ain't no drag. Papa's got a brand new bag.
To qualify for the grand prize, the drawing will be Wednesday, June 12th, inside Say Something Real with Michelle Bryant.
Habari Ghani, this is the voice of the community found on WNOV 860 AM, W293CX 106.5 FM. I'm Kwaku Asi, better known as the Blacksmith, Milwaukee's favorite psychologist, host of Nayumbu Upendo. This show will air every Wednesday from 11 to 12, where we will talk on all things mental health. When you need a healing for your mind, body, and soul, come to Nayumbu Upendo.
Welcome back to Community Voice. We have a few minutes left. It was real interesting. I thought about this yesterday when thinking about the word accountability. There's a movie called Waiting for Superman, and it really talks about alternative forms of education, either through choice, charter. And one of the people who participated in that movie was Dr. Howard Fuller. And we're talking about the difficulty of moving or firing incompetent teachers. And he talked about in New York, and he said they had the equivalent of it here. They had something called the lemon rule, the lemon room. And the lemon room was where you had teachers who had no business being in the classroom, but because of contracts and other things, it would be very difficult to fire. So then they put them in a room and they just sit there in that room all day, almost like, I don't know if it'd be study hall detention, but that's what they did. And they're getting full salary. And Dr. Fuller talked about that they had the equivalent of the lemon room here. And where you had teachers who had no business teaching. And then you're talking about MTEA now. Not only did you have the union, you had contracts. You had collective bargaining agreements. And for one who worked in government and knows how difficult it could be when it comes to that contract and union representation and trying to get rid of a bad employee, I could tell you that if you're going to get fired, now that's changed a little bit probably because of Act 10, but if you were going to get fired, usually it was for insubordination or attendance. And even what we had to do for attendance, the hoops we really had to go through just to get a person on attendance. And I can tell you my tenure as a manager / supervisor, I never saw anyone fired for performance. But one has to believe there are one or two bad teachers that have no business being in the classroom with the kids. We could argue that we probably had one or two workers that had no business working with the public, but how difficult it was to get those people removed. It was hard to the point that people just get frustrated and kind of throw their hands up and go like, dude, it ain't worth it. And somebody was pointing out the commercial that Maya Rudolph did a couple of weeks on Saturday Night Live with the teachers, and they said, the kids, you won. And it because not only are you dealing with bad kids, you also have awful teachers. Now, this is not new, because I could tell you, and I'm not going to call any names, that there were some teachers when I was in school that had no business teaching, okay, but try to fire them. And yeah, there's somebody that had no business in a classroom with a child. It just had none. But they had union protection. They had contract protection. They had civil service protection. So it's hard. So that's also part of it when we talk about accountability, the people who actually do the work and how they can be held accountable and responsible, not only for the work that they do, but the quality of work. There's something, this is why I am such a, I think it's Nicole Wallace, who's with she's with MSNBC now. She was a campaign worker for George W. Bush. First of all, she's incredibly insightful. But she penned the line, the soft bigotry of low expectations. This is something that when they were doing No Child Left Behind and you heard George Bush come out with the soft bigotry of low expectations, that's Nicole Wallace, one of the greatest lines I've ever heard penned politically. But that's a real concern, that we don't have a higher expectation of these systems and how these systems impact us and impact our children. All right. Again, Wednesday's word is accountability. Let me thank Debo. Carby, thank you, sir. Michelle, thank you. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Hope to talk to everybody tomorrow. And as always, go from this place in peace.
Open up